Hello, I'm Martin Mercer.
And I'm James Mastriani.
You've never heard of us.
We're two Brits who grew up in North London and have had varying success in the film and television industry.
In our ever-advancing age, we find ourselves on
the wrong side of Hollywood.
In our series of podcasts, we'll share our experiences of what it's like being a British bloke living and working,
or not,
in the biz.
We'll discuss everything from fish and chips to things that wind us up.
So stay with us. It's all uphill from here.
This podcast may contain strong language. If you're of a sensitive nature or easily offended, we invite you to, as they say in Blighty, jog on.
Martin, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, James, even though the weather's absolutely miserable.
Which is fantastic because we need it.
Oh, we do need some moisture. It's always interesting how you get all these photos appearing on social media. Oh, look, rain, wet streets. It's like it's just something amazing. It's just like everybody else has that experience. Yeah. But in Los Angeles, it's so unusual. And actually, a friend of mine, another James, I have more than two Jameses. But the other James showed me a picture of his house. It was in a place called La Crescenta, I believe. And it's not far away. It's about 22 minutes away. And it was snowing, absolutely snowing. And Sally wanted me to drive over there and take Lucas to play in the snow. But I was like, no, I'm not driving.
Did you see Bates's picture that he posted from his front yard of the Santa Susana? I think it's Santa Susana. Just covered in snow.
Yeah, James Bates is a friend of ours. Yeah. More of a friend.
And they've been without electricity since Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely dreadful. And that's the Department of Water Power.
LADWP, for anybody who's wondering.
Indeed, and it all goes way back to Chinatown, doesn't it? And there's a book called The City of Quartz, and it deals with how LA is just this absolute corrupt basin of sin. Sin City.
Yes.
So it's all a bit corrupt, and we had the Department of Power round here once, and their job is to cut the trees near the power lines, you see, because it's a bit dangerous. And they were looking and they go, nah, it's fine. And Sally goes, look, it needs to be cut. He goes, well, how much are you going to pay us then? How much are you going to pay us? Absolute corrupt. Anyway, poor old James Bates and Karen dealing with the weather.
Yeah, no, it's awful.
And no power and heat. That's awful.
No, yeah, it is pretty
dreadful.
And it is cold. I mean, it's surprising. We've got this whole cold front coming down from Alaska.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've enjoyed the rain, but it's like I'm at the point
you love
now
the rain because you're English. We take pride in walking in the rain and laughing at Americans who don't have any raincoats. Everybody I see when I pick up Luke at school, they're all wearing cloth hoodies and T-shirts. And I'm like, you're unprepared.
I think you're thinking of yourself. I'm half American, Martin.
Yes. So anyway, it's miserable. And talking of misery, I thought, what better than to bring a miserable item for our tea, James?
And what is it? Pray tell.
American attempt at scone. A scone. But what it is...
Where from?
Well, I'm going to slag it off, so I'm not sure if I'm going to mention the place. But it's somewhere in Pasadena, not far from the house that Michael Myers fell to his assumed death and then disappeared from the balcony. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes. So but they actually moved the house from the original street. You know that,
I didn't know that,
Yeah, but that's what they did, because I remember going down the street, looking, where's the house? And it was like, no, they actually moved it. It's all painted nice, and they took the railings off the balcony.
And it's a museum.
Right, which I've never been in.
No, I haven't either.
No, apparently when you get to the top, they push you off the balcony.
So it's a place that shall not be named because we're going to slag it off.
But the coffee's excellent and the proprietor's very nice. And I went in there and I said, oh, what's that looks like? A scone? He goes, yeah. Is that cheese on top of that scone? He goes, yeah. I was like, you're really ruining Britain there.
Well, they do have cheese scones.
I've never had a cheese scone.
I've never had one, but I have seen them.
With melted... I'm talking, this looks like an ice cap on top here, mate. Look, I'm going to... Well, your bit's the worst bit, so I don't want to touch your bit.
You're giving me the worst one.
I'm giving you the topper.
Let me get a plate.
Oh, you know what? I've actually made a right mess of this because it's overcooked, Jay. I put it in that bloody atomic toaster oven. The cheese is literally like plaster. But also, I did put butter on there.
Okay.
But it's gone. It's melted. You've got a choice of jams.
I'm going to try it without.
You're not going to have jam?
Oh, well, I'm going to try it without.
You really aren't English. Right, so...
No, but there's no...
Are you going to pour? No, I haven't told you yet what else is in there.
I was going to say, there's no clotted... Oh, is it?
Oh, go on, try it. I haven't told you what else is in there.
I am going to take a bite of this cheesy scone.
Mind your teeth. You haven't poured any tea either. How is it?
Very crispy.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
On bacon!
Yeah!
Oh my God!
Bacon in a scone! What is wrong with you, America? Unbelievable.
I kind of like it.
Oh, Christ. Unreal. There's no hope. So, yes, now, because we were going to talk about the Oscars, and I thought, you know what? This represents the Oscars where they are today. An overbaked scone with cheese on top and bacon inside. I'm pouring your tea, James.
Thank you very much.
And I just thought, yeah, this represents it perfectly in my humble. So
I'm not talking because I'm still chewing the scone with the bacon.
You're still masticating, and there's no spoon. So yeah, a bit disappointed with the Oscars as I've travelled through, because as a kid, you know, it was absolutely wonderful seeing the Oscars, sitting in UK, watching them, dreaming of working in the business, and you know, just it was very magical, I think, then. And I think it was a ceremony that was more of its time then than it is now. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. When we were living in England, I remember asking Mum back then to stay up late so I could watch the Oscars, and she would be like, yeah, and we'd always get Barry Norman, who was our film critic.
Yeah.
You pay your money, you eat your chalk ice.
Oh, God.
Anyway, so we'd stay up and we'd watch it, and then he would, you know, in between the commercial breaks they'd have over here, he would go and interview the winners. And it was always really exciting because me wanting to get into special effects back then, I was like, oh, who's won the Oscar for Best Special Effects? You know, and all the other stuff was just fluff, but it was still interesting to find out who's going to win. I think these days they've cut down on how long somebody can talk for, on their acceptance speech, and especially last year with the slap.
Oh, I'm not talking about that, mate.
No, I know.
No, I'm not talking about it because I decided not to in my head. Feel free, you know, but there's so much in that. What you're seeing is the end result.
I thought you weren't going to talk about it.
No, I'm just, I'm piping some cream round my opinion, but I'm not going to go into the opinion.
Right, okay.
What you're seeing there is a tip of the iceberg, as it were.
Right.
And I think it's so easy to look at something. It's like when you look at those TikTok video or something, or you remember the famous advert for The Independent, I think it was, where you see this skinhead running towards a bloke, and it's like, oh, he's running, and the bloke's got his briefcase, and it's like, oh, he's in for a mugging.
Right.
And then you cut to the other point of view, and you see he's walking under a pallet of bricks. Brilliant advert. And the skinhead is actually going to pull him out the way, basically. And I think all these things are like that. So, you know, it's a bit tough. I mean, it was pretty shocking, I have to say. But anyway, moving swiftly on. Yeah.
Good talking to them.
Yeah, I was thinking you're masticating and your mouth's full of cement-like scone. I totally understand. The thing is with the Oscars as well, having touched an Oscar, I believe you touched an Oscar as well.
And BAFTAs.
Right. When I touched George's Oscar.
I did too.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
When he wasn't looking.
You did?
No, he asked.
Oh. You remember he hid them under the couch. George Gibbs, special effects supervisor, Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade.
And Brazil. Those were the ones he got the Oscars for, was Temple of Doom and Brazil.
Right.
And the BAFTAs as well.
Yeah. And so he used to go around to his house on Saturday or Sunday, and there they were. And George said always something funny to me, and again, this is talking about our relationship with America as English gentlemen, is that he would go, Mark, I'd be walking down a corridor at Universal, you know, he'd be doing something, having a meeting, and people go, oh, there's Georgie Gibbs. He goes, Britain, nobody knew who I was.
Right.
There was nothing, no recognition. And I think that's probably changed in the UK now, but it really brought it home to me that back then, and again, going back to the Oscar ceremony, this whole celebration of movie making and filmmaking, and it was just such this untouchable craft back then. I mean, I was probably looking at through it fucking rose-tinted.
It was very difficult for us to get into the industry entirely. You really had to start at the bottom and work your way up. And you had a taste of that in the UK. And that set you on this trajectory. Whereas I basically did a lot of, you know, helping friends out on their productions and occasionally going in on something.
But if I may interject, you had that moment when you were on a production and somebody said something to you. What was it?
Well,
and this is not a shame thing. It's just something I was so annoyed about I heard.
We don't want to bring you back on the next one because you were too eager.
Yeah, I thought it was too enthusiastic.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Too enthusiastic. Yeah, don't want to bring you in on the next one because you're too enthusiastic.
It obviously hurt me more because I can remember it. You forgot it.
I mean, that was the mentality back then. Where I kind of started out was an old school friend of ours, and he brought me on a couple of projects, and they were commercials.
Right.
I mean, I was a nobody. I was just helping him out on a project.
Still are.
Yeah. And Rub it in, why don't you?
Definitely.
You know, he said, oh, how am I going to do this effect? I think we had to create a dribble coming out of a can. Like somebody drinking something and then a drop of it drips off his chin. And I said, why don't you just poke a hole in it?
Right.
And it would just dribble out down your shirt and into your lap.
Right.
And I remembered that. And I said, why don't we do that? And he goes, let's try it. And we tried it. And sure enough, it worked.
It works. And you're too enthusiastic and we'll never use you again.
Exactly.
Next. I mean, it's just a joke, isn't it? Yeah. Now, that was a famous director, wasn't it, James? Come on, you're being very shy. I want names named.
That director...
No, you have to be careful.
That director was not the one that said I was too enthusiastic. That was somebody... And that was a... What are they called? Industrial videos. But no, the director of this thing was... oh, my God, my mind.
Oh, come on. Draw it up. Use the wand and draw it from your mind.
I summon you, my thoughts.
It's Professor Slughorn here. I can't remember it. I refuse.
I can't remember.
All right. Come on, 3, 2, 1. And it was who, James?
I can't remember.
Okay. I've never heard of him.
No.
It was Alan Smithy, James.
Alan Smithy, that's exactly who it was.
But it is fascinating, and I do think that attitude seems to have gone from, pardon me, scone talking, from Britain these days. I mean, they've got so many training things, and I don't think you would get that now. It's much more enthusiastic. It's such a business now, the movie making industry in the UK, compared to when you remember Save Our Studios.
Yeah. When it all got sold into Tesco's.
Yeah. In fact, talking to George Gibbs, half his workshops became Tesco's car park.
Well, I mean, I remember going along to that protest.
Oh, right.
And I was in the back. I mean, I was there with a few other people.
I didn't go to the front.
No, well, you know, it was packed. There was a lot of people there, and they were all saying, yeah, we should save it. And I think, if I recall correctly, it was Brian Henson was heading up the lead on that whole movement.
Right.
Because obviously the Muppets were all filmed there, and Muppet movies.
Yeah.
Not the Muppet Show, that was down the street.
ATV Elstree, as it was then. But so they sold all that stuff off, Save Our Studios. I saw a photo of myself recently. It had Star Wars first 10 years, and then it has SOS on the back because, you know, all those movies were made at Elstree Studios. Yeah,
and funny enough, Elstree Studios has the George Lucas stage there now. And that's where the Big Brother house is.
Yeah.
There. So that's...
I think on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, they had the end sequence, and the whole movie was shot there basically, you know, apart from location work. The cave was collapsing, and that was all huge steel tubular sections on the hydraulic rigs, and then the plasters came in and they covered it all with their fake rock stuff, absolutely beautiful, and then the rocks would all shift, and there was this platform and it would all move, and I think that was in the Star Wars stage, because that was all done before they sold it off.
And that was the biggest stage there was, because if you remember, the 007 stage had burned down, and then the Star Wars Stage 6, as it was known then, was the largest stage in Great Britain, until they rebuilt the 007 stage and made it even bigger. It's so funny.
Keep burning it down. So a bit sad, but so it's kind of, you know, and all that memory brings up the Oscars, and I did my research. I didn't look at anything basically. I just thought I'm going to come in naked, as it were, and just see if I can just riff through the Oscars.
Well, and that was the thing. I mean, I've only seen one of the Oscar contenders, and that was Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was actually a lot of fun, but there was a lot to unpack in that whole movie.
That's a very...
I know.
Oh, James, that's a reach out and touch me.
Faith. It's reach out and touch faith.
Oh, right. Reach out. Anyway, that's unpack. Oh, but I get your drift. I think we get your drift.
There was so much going on and so many timelines and stuff, and it was very cleverly done, and I did enjoy it.
Right.
But at the end of it, I was left with...
Right. Bit mixed up.
Yeah.
Right.
And everybody was fantastic, by the way.
Right. It was the talking rocks that confused you.
I tell you, it was... But I mean, I actually laughed at that. I thought that was really funny.
You know why I love the talking rocks? They had fucking subtitles.
Yes.
And me, being a bit Mutt Jeff, I was like, okay, it's the only part of the film that I could actually understand because of the subtitles.
Right.
But it's interesting because there's a little story there as it happens. Ki Hae Kwan?
Short Round.
Yeah, him. Now, George very kindly took me and his lovely son James to see the filming of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yes.
And for the rail track sequence, so obviously the wide shot, they're beautiful models done by ILM.
Yeah.
But any of the close work, medium shots, they built the cave.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which
And it
stage.
was basically a roller coaster inside the cave.
Well,
it was
like
a very low roller coaster.
It was literally like a circular shape, but squashed. What's
Yes.
that? Like an egg shape or something. Anyway,
Oval.
something
Oval.
Like, oval, that's the
There you go.
word. Yeah. And
Sour.
Hey?
Sour.
A sour oval shape. George built all that, and Elliot Scott, production design, did this beautiful cave set and stuff. And it was Short Round's birthday, and I can still see the cake. It was like a green cake, a football field on top, I think. And they came round and said, "Oh, it's Key Short Round's birthday.
Right.
Would you like a piece?" And I was so shy. I was like, "No," but we actually said hello to him.
Right.
Well, my better half, she went to his school,
Yes.
and she was in his class and sat behind him, and she was like, "Oh, where's he gone? He's gone for so long." And of course he'd gone to England to shoot this film. And so my future wife sat behind Kihei on Short Round. And I shook his hand. It was like he was the separation between me and my wife-to-be. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's so bizarre, right?
That is a bizarre sort of situation, isn't it?
And he's a lovely chap, but he's gone through the gristmill. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day, and you just listen to his story. I was like, yes, this is it. This is fantastic because, okay, you know, he was in Indiana Jones at 12. He was
Goonies.
So it's not, you know, it's not such a tragic story. But the thing is the way he didn't think he'd ever act again.
Right. Did he go into stunts?
I think he was doing a bit of second unit. I think he was doing a bit of ADing. I think a lot of ADing behind the camera.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought
below the line.
I thought I heard a rumor that he was doing stunts for a
And
while.
not doing. No, I don't think he was actually doing stunts.
No?
No, I don't think so. But the thing is he was below the line.
Right.
So having been above the line,
Yes.
he was now below the line. So naturally he was like, ah! And, you know, 30 years later, he's now finally above the line again.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely story. I really hope he wins. That is a Tinseltown lovely story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very sugary and lovely, isn't it?
It is. And best of luck to him for that.
Bastard.
He's going to come over and say hi to Sal, and you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you bastard on that podcast."
No. There's no chance ever going to be anywhere near that ceremony, James. Because that's the funny thing here, is a few of my friends have won them.
Yes.
Some makeup effects guys.
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to mention them because they probably don't want to be associated with me or this podcast at all. But both those guys who've won those, I am just genuinely... It's lovely.
Generally stoked for them,
They come from nothing.
Yeah.
They got into makeup effects back in the late 80s and 90s. And these guys just worked fucking hard and they've made it. And to see them up there is absolutely amazing. And I love that.
No, and that's great. It's always good when you recognise people who are being recognised by the Academy, you know.
Yeah, and of course there's a bit of me, it's like, if only I'd stayed in makeup effects, maybe I could be up there, maybe I could, because there's no chance they're in fucking storyboards. And I was like, maybe. But then I kind of think, no, you know what? I look at those guys and I remember working, I got a very clear memory of those days because they're my life.
Yeah.
And I remember, no, you know what? So-and-so who won that Oscar, he really worked hard. I worked hard, but I didn't become the professional that guy does. I think I have been in my art career touching the cloth of professionalism, but I think that these guys, you're like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. And that's fine, but it's just interesting.
Yeah, it is. And did you see All Quiet on the Western Front?
I did.
Did you hear about the debacle with the BAFTAs?
No.
The woman that wrote that, she'd wanted to get into films from a very early age, and she had actually been very athletic as a youngster. And she came to the United States. She scored the rights to the original story of All Quiet on the Western Front, and had a certain window of time to sell this script and what have you. I think the renewal for the rights came up again. She needed $10,000 or something to renew the rights. And so she thought, well, I can go for this triathlon. She breaks her shoulder the day before, struggles through it. She gets the money, studio gets behind it, makes the film. She goes up to get her BAFTA, and the BBC cut her speech.
I thought you were going to say she fell over and broke her other arm.
They cut Her speech.
Oh God, that's a great story.
So I hope she wins Best Writer. No.
Because of course, all quiet on the Western Front means that there's no message from the Western Front. It's all quiet,
Yeah.
and in the film, it doesn't really come across.
But wait, isn't this told from the German side point of view rather than the original, which is from the Allied?
No. The original.
have I got
No,
that
it's a
wrong?
German. It's German.
I was wrong then.
Yeah, you were. Correct yourself.
I will.
It's practice your German time, folks. No, it's a German book. Is it Sebastian Junger who wrote Storm of Steel? Which I think would make an amazing movie. Because again, it's World War One, the mechanised war, trench warfare, and this deals with it, but it's really with the soldier and just the shelling.
Yeah.
The idea that this is the first time as a soldier you can literally see the shells.
Yeah.
Because they're not like now where you can't see them.
Right.
And you see these fucking things falling like a storm of steel, you see.
Okay.
There's a great book, Sebastian, you got something like that. I'm sure will be corrected at the end.
We will find out.
Did you enjoy that?
The movie?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
You haven't seen it?
No, I'm gonna have to watch it
Oh, mate.
because this is obviously
Busy with that Marvel
pre-Oscars,
fluff again.
and then that actually, Quantumania didn't make the cut.
No. But
At all.
something else did, which I can't remember. Some film. Anyway. Some film that shouldn't have made did better.
We should have done our research for this one.
No, it's good because this is what it's like being on the other side of Hollywood. You don't, I'm not following it every day because why? Because even though it's 2 miles away, I don't give a monkey's.
Yeah, but hold on a second. You get screeners.
I do get screeners, and talking to the screeners, there's one called The Nanny, which was a horror film. I'd say horror film is... I love horror movies, obviously. I live for horror film. And this is a horror film, but it's really beautifully made and directed. The way they shoot the actors, absolutely astonishing. Called The Nanny.
Do you know what it's up for?
Oh, no, I don't think it's nominated.
But they sent you a screener.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
because these are the films they want to be nominated.
Right, okay.
And unfortunately, I haven't even seen Elvis, which one of my friends did the makeup for.
Oh, cool.
And I haven't even seen that, but apparently that's meant to be pretty good. But Elvis, I met Elvis once in my first marriage because he married us in Las Vegas.
Oh, Elvis.
But were you ever
I
into Elvis?
remember the first 45 I ever bought was Way Down by Elvis Presley.
In the ghetto.
No. It's way down. Anyway, it goes on like that. It's a brilliant track.
Yeah.
But it was like one of his last pop songs.
Oh.
It's 79 pence at Our Price Records.
Our
folks.
Price Records.
Yes.
I can still see that logo.
Yeah.
A black licorice kind of record on red, right?
Yeah.
Our Price Records.
Yeah, and that was right next door to McDonald's.
Right,
On
and-
High Street.
What was the place where you could get the veggie burger?
That would have been Wimpy.
Wimpy.
Ugh.
Now, Wimpy is a British
Greasy
hamburger, greasy spoon, famous, I think, for doing the sausage, where they would cut the sausages up into slice and then make it into a wagon wheel. Talking about Americans ruining culinary culture, well, us Brits are very good at doing it too. There's nobody else in the world that would take a sausage, slice it so you could bend it round and make a fucking wheel and then put an egg in the middle, or worse, a tomato fried. And that was Wimpy, but they did do very good veggie burgers back in the 80s when being
I never liked Wimpy.
No,
ever.
no. You were a McDonald's fan, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, James, is this
But that's
is
when they were good.
well, now talking about your aging process, because unfortunately you have a few ailments, bless you, and I'm concerned. But I've been thinking about it, and I think
said
it was
sincerely.
it was his diet of McDonald's and Coke as a kid. You just non-stop
That's
McDonald's
not true.
and Coke.
You make it sound like
and
you're
I
about
think it's.
£500.
I think you're paying the price, mate. I do. I know it's got nothing to do with the Oscars, but I do. So I'm not really seeing the movies, and I will watch it, I think, because Sal likes to watch it, you see, and I'm dragged in. But it's lost its touch.
Lost its sparkle.
Yeah. But what the remedy for it is, I have no idea. But I tell you what, it's not working.
No, and the thing is, I mean, since that Golden Globe debacle,
What happened there? You can't remember.
I can't remember.
Something went wrong, but he can't
it was
remember.
like, I can't remember. There was a big debacle a couple of years back where Golden Globes were.
Oh, didn't they misannounce? Oh, no, that was the Oscars when they misannounced,
No,
didn't
but
they?
the Golden Globes did something where they. See, I should have been prepared.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared. Sorry, everyone. I'm unprepared.
And don't apologise.
I-
It's part of the fun.
Yeah, but
Just wading in deep and just hoping you don't get eaten by a crocodile.
I'm being eaten alive right now.
Yeah, you're doing a what's his name in Jaws? Quint.
Quint, yes.
You're kicking at your heels are kicking the mouth of the shark, and
I'm coughing
you're
up blood.
You're being devoured. What a great scene that was! So real looking.
Yeah.
And the blood back then looked really good. But anyway, yeah. So we'll see what happens. I hope my mate wins. That's my main thing. If he wins, I'd watch it to see him go up there, and that would be cool.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what does get best makeup effects. Oh, the chap who was in the first Mummy, which was awesome.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
And so I can remember that.
Now, I haven't seen this film, The Whale.
Right.
I've not seen it, but the prosthetic effects by Adrien Moreau, I believe, he's a French Canadian, and he created his makeup and this suit. Astounding.
Really?
Astounding. I think he's up in the running for it, but just brilliant. I really have to see that film anyway.
Yeah.
Because, I worked on The Mummy 3.
Yeah.
And he was in that, but I didn't really have much to do with him because I was in the bunker drawing, sat next to Rob Cohen,
Ah,
who
yes.
was the director. But I did work with Stephen Sommer as well, who directed the first Mummy.
Yeah, first two.
Yes, and the first one I love. I think the first one is literally the Indiana Jones of that time period. It really is.
Yeah.
But I worked with him on G.I. Joe, and
He was a second unit director, wasn't he? Or...
No, he directed
No,
G.I. Joe.
no, I know, but before that, wasn't he a second unit director?
Probably.
Was
If he was, I could believe it.
Yeah.
But actually, the transition from second unit to overall directing, it's not as easy as a lot of second unit directors I've seen and met who tried the transition.
Yeah.
And it's just like they kind of scuttle back to, which I think is great. Second unit directing is a skill, and I think it's more fun.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't second unit the one that does all the fights and blowings up and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, and you'd think, of course, as a first unit director, you'd be like, oh, hold on, sunshine, I want a bit of that. What are you doing?
They're too busy shooting a movie.
Yeah, but it's basically what you would call insert shots, which when we do storyboarding, so you have to come up with the stuff, seatbelts clicking, wheels turning, smoke off wheels.
Yeah.
And now, especially with the Marvel movies, I've got quite a few friends that bought those Marvel movies. And there's a friend of mine, Tony, who's absolutely fantastic artist. And he actually has his own video of what storyboard artists do. It's called The Board Lords. He has that on YouTube. It's really cool. If you want to know what happens to board artists and what we do, that's a great thing. If you're considering a career... Don't. Anyway, but it's a great YouTube. And he does all that stuff, and there's bus crashes, and all the characters, the Marvel characters have to do all this stuff, and that all has to be pieced together.
Because he did Eternals, didn't he?
I believe so, yeah. And then there's Darren Dellinger, who is a master animatics. And so all that second unit stuff, those guys are absolutely like gold to the second unit directors because you can put all this stuff together, and when you get on set they already know what they have to do. You have to make the hood of the car crumple as a certain character hits it, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very exciting. I think second unit directing is great, but of course there's the kudos of directing a movie. But I think directing a movie these days, going back to the Oscars, is not what it was. I think these days the directors, unless you're a Denis
Villeneuve. Yeah.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yes.
Now, he's a star director, and he's managed to carve his own sort of visual look and career.
Yeah.
You know, like the great Ridley Scott, Spielberg, and there's some others, but my memory fails me terribly. But
Welcome to my world.
Yes, but very few of these guys manage to, James Wan is another one who I've been lucky enough to work with. They carve their own visual style and they carve their careers. But a lot of directors, you're not in that position. You're basically a Muppet. I hate to say that, and that's no disrespect.
So the Muppets with a capital M.
Yeah, especially in a studio picture. And I think the Oscars of old, the individual directors creating individual movies that we're still talking about 40 years later. We're not going to be talking about, I'm sorry, the films today, we're not going to be talking about in 40 years' time.
Yeah. I think some of them we will be, but not to the...
Name them.
My memory's left the room, mate. I can't remember shit. I don't even remember what I did this morning.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Welcome to my world.
That's a grim world.
I just realised I did see the Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, so did I.
Which is fantastic.
Yes.
I really like that movie.
Yes.
And the Fabelmans, of course. And I think
I
that's
didn't
up for
see
it.
that.
But you see, I
Bit
like
gooey,
that.
isn't it?
But I like that nostalgia.
Spielberg goo.
Yeah, but it's a personal piece for
Right.
Spielberg. And knowing a lot of his background from all the books I've read and interviews I've seen, yeah, I've heard about him doing the war epic that he made with all of his buddies and faking explosions by having dirt on a plank and stepping on it and it flying up. But actually seeing it reenacted in the movie, that yes, it's his movie of his life. Oh, it was fascinating. I love that.
Right.
I think it was just a lovely movie. I think I might actually buy that and add that to my collection.
Well, you can have the disc because I've got it as a screener, which I've yet to see. But the thing is, when I think of Spielberg, I think of when I had my hand up a lizard's puppet's backside, which I'd made, and I was grasping Mr. Spielberg's foot. This was on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yes.
Now, it's for the end sequence, and originally the Grail falls into that crevice.
Right.
Indy's reaching for it,
Okay.
and something was meant to come out. Finally, it was going to be a spider. But they didn't want to do a spider, it was too much. And then it was going to be a monitor lizard. So a monitor lizard is actually very ferocious and quite large.
And they have a poisonous bite, don't they?
Something like that, yeah. And there was a gentleman called Mike Cullen, who was the animal expert who'd go into movies in the UK, and he provided a monitor lizard. So we brought this along and I looked at it from a distance. And anyways, I sculpted this various puppets, actually, a mechanical big one that was 6 foot long, believe it or not. And we never finished. And then a glove puppet one, and I went up and George introduced me to Spielberg. I think he said hello. It wasn't very memorable, to be honest. It was just a nobody. Funny enough, at 18.
You're talking about you being a nobody, not Spielberg being
No, I wouldn't say that about him.
No, I know.
He's a hero and everything. But he goes, okay, yeah, grab my foot. Okay, and he kind of framed his fingers,
right?
And I had to kind of wrestle Spielberg's brogue shoes with this fucking lizard puppet on as I was on my knees. I'm like, that'd be quite an interesting photo. So yeah, and he was kind of framing it up and goes, okay, great, thanks. And of course, needless to say, that was the end of that. That was never used. So of course, I have that. I like yourself, that love of Spielberg. Yeah. Absolutely. There's never going to be another guy like him. No. But I think I have to be in a mood to see that film. Maybe a rainy day, that kind of nostalgia.
Tomorrow then, because it'll be pissing down.
Right, is it? Yeah. Oh, fuck. Talking about the rain, eh? Oh, what a disaster.
It's been a couple of days.
Yeah. And the Banshees of Inisherin. What is it?
The Banshees of Inisherin.
Right, which is a made-up island, right?
Yeah.
It's not real.
No.
But I don't know where they...
Actually, no, it's not about an island. It's about the song.
Yeah, but the place they're in is not... It's not in... It's in Ireland. They shot it in Ireland.
Yes, they did.
But it's an imaginary place.
But I love the fact they built that whole pub.
Oh, yeah.
That's brilliant.
It's all art directed. Yeah. It's not... sorry to say. I know it's a different film from In Bruges. It is.
No, I know.
But I do love the two actors.
Yeah.
I mean, they are. Well, I think he's wearing prosthetics as well, isn't he, Colin Farrell?
No, he's not.
Isn't he?
No one's wearing prosthetics.
No, he looks different in there. Got some makeup.
The interesting
going on
thing with Colin Farrell, he was. Interesting story. So we'd been invited to Elizabeth Taylor's memorial at Warner Brothers.
Hold on a minute. Let me just let that sink in. My friend, you know Elizabeth Taylor quite well, don't you?
No. It was Guy and Celia who knew Elizabeth very well.
Right.
My brother and my sister.
But you went round to dinner there, right?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah.
But you saw her jewels, pardon the expression.
Yes, but that was at a museum. So anyway, it was Elizabeth's memorial service being held at Warner Brothers. And we're on the way in with a load of cars. Guy, Monty, and I are in my crappy old beat-up red Ford Focus.
Oh, yeah.
And there are all these limos and sports cars lining up, and we have to show our invite. And I can't remember the exact wording, but it was like, we have Joan Collins, we have Cindy Crawford, and we're just waiting on Sophia Loren. And Guy, Monty, and I look at each other, and we're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Legends.
So anyway, we go in and we sit down in the theater and all this kind of stuff. And Colin Farrell is doing the speech and introducing clips and things like that.
The host.
And he was the host. And he did, I thought, a really nice job. And at the end of it, I went up to him and said, hey, I just want to thank you so much. He goes, yeah, man, whatever. And he turned and walked away. I said, I'm sorry, I'm Richard Burton's great nephew. And he goes, oh, hey, man, yeah, thank you so much. And then he turned away. And I was like, really?
Yeah. He thought you were a nobody, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And he's right. I was. But I was actually giving a genuine compliment.
Yeah.
And
The
I was,
switch, the change.
And I was just... And the thing that bothers me is I love his acting.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
love his characterizations. He's so good. But I'm just like, really?
He stung you, and I don't blame you, mate.
So if you're listening to this,
Oh,
Colin...
ouch, steady. Get the scissors ready for this bit.
I love your acting, but, you know...
Yeah, it's
come
a
on,
bit,
man.
Well, you know, this is the thing. You've got to remember that with acting. It is an act. You know, think about somebody, they do bare their soul, especially when you see the way stuff's shot now.
Yeah.
Cameras are like right up their face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I always think that. I was watching this amazing thing called
Yeah.
Maid. It's an absolutely fantastic Netflix show based on a true story of an abused woman. And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the lead actress's name, but that camera is right in her face. And so I can't imagine doing that.
Well, that's
And
why
you-
they're actors. They're professionals.
Well, no, I believe. No, don't worry, I'm not polishing their knobs about this, but I'm just saying that it is, you know, you're not going to get what's behind there.
Right.
Who is that person? We all wear masks, even myself, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
Some of them, there you go. Never meet your heroes, mate.
That's true.
That's what
very
they
true.
say.
Well,
What's the time?
it's time we...
Are we touching?
Not personally, no. But yeah, we should wrap that one up.
I say.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay dry.
Yeah, and do me a favour, don't bring any more of those scones.
Yeah, well, didn't you? I know they're bloody dreadful. I'm actually feeling quite dodgy in the lower regions. You said you had something from Porto's.
I did, but we'll save that for next time.
Okay. A bit of
Coffee crumb cake.
coffee crumb cake.
Yes.
That's not really a Latin dish, is it? But it comes from a bakery, a Portuguese bakery, would you call Porto's?
I
Or
don't
am I
know.
getting
No,
mixed up?
that's her last name is Porto.
Oh, that's her last name?
Yeah.
But the culture...
I don't know if it... No, it's not...
It's like Greg's. Well, we know, that's a British bakery, isn't it? You get your jam donut from there. So Porto's, you're going to get... You've got empanadas there. So there must be a South American connection, right?
Probably.
We'll see next time. You're buying.
Cheers, mate. See you next week.
That fucking scone, mate.
Before we go, we bring you our...
Fact check! Fact check! Fact check!
Fact check segment.
Here, with the benefit of hindsight,
And editing.
we can own up to our mistakes.
Well, Martin, it wasn't The Independent with the skinhead point of view campaign. It was the Guardian newspaper.
Ah.
I could see where you would get mixed up, though, because it would seem like The Independent would do something that
Yeah,
was independent
yeah.
point of view. But anyway,
Thank you, Prof. Oh,
that's you. You're Prof. I'm Hoff.
Well, more embarrassingly for you, dear James, the director you failed to recall the name of was your good family friend, Mr. Jonathan Glazer.
Yes.
Who has done two of my favourite films.
Sexy Beast.
Yes, and Under the Skin.
Yeah.
I love that!
Not to mention that fantastic, he did lots of stuff, but not to mention that fantastic Jamiroquai video, Virtual Insanity.
Oh, yeah, with the set on
with
rollers
the set
or
on
whatever.
rollers, just
Yeah.
moving around.
No,
Brilliant.
he's very clever. Even though he bullied me in my primary school. Very clever.
And Martin,
Yes.
Ki Hui Kwan. In Cantonese, Guan Gai Wai.
Thank you, James.
thanks Sally. He did become a stunt coordinator and a first AD in 1998 after finding it difficult to find acting work in the US.
Oh, okay, well, I hope he wins his well-deserved Oscar. Awesome.
And Mr. Round, we apologise.
Now, James,
Yes.
All Quiet on the Western Front, the
Yes.
2022 production on Netflix. The screenwriter's name, Leslie Patterson, was a Scottish-born athlete and filmmaker.
And she still got dissed by the BBC, and hopefully if they're up for it for the Oscars, she'll get to say her piece.
I hope so. Incredible journey.
Yeah, fantastic. And Martin, Storm of Steel was not written by Sebastian Junger. It was Ernst Junger.
Ah.
He was the older of the Jungers.
Oh, right.
No, I don't know. I was just making that bit up.
Oh,
But
okay.
it
Well, this is a
wasn't-
fact check.
but
It's
it-
got to be...
But it was Ernst Junger.
Right, okay. Thank you. Right, well, James,
Yes,
my dear fellow, the Golden Globes debacle you were trying to recall was because the Hollywood Foreign Press Association's questionable practices based on corruption and lack of diversity.
Yes, and again, ginkgo brain, everything just went out in the moment.
As it does
As it
with
does.
your lower regions too.
And lastly, Porto's Bakery is not a Portuguese restaurant. I should have known this straight off the top. It's a Cuban bakery that was founded by Rosa and her husband Raul Sr., who set up their first bakery in Echo Park after coming from Cuba.
Right.
And now they have 6 locations in and around Los Angeles, with a 7th due to open in downtown Disney in Anaheim.
Well, you can afford all the bakeries apart from the one in Disneyland because their prices are skyrocketing.
And you have to pay to park there.
Yeah, but the bakery is fabulous.
It
I
is.
do love their empanadas.
Yes, and you
I
do
love
like a
those.
certain cake in a certain... Yeah, never mind. We won't go into that.
No, but the empanadas do remind me of little mini Cornish pasties. It's so interesting how cultures...
They're very
the
good.
cross-cultural
Yeah.
bakery jobby. Bye,
It's all
James.
good. See you later.
Cheers.